Alright, good afternoon one and all, and welcome to my video tutorial series. This is gonna be the first part where we would be learning about Kubernetes. So hopefully you guys watched my first video, that is introduction video. So this is the first video where we would actually start learning about Kubernetes, all of its concepts, about a big picture about Kubernetes, the services, the pods, the nodes, everything we'll learn slowly, right? One thing at a time, right? So join me and let's get started with this tutorial series, okay? So first of all, let me get back to slides. I have divided this course into several sections. This video is also going to be in several sections. At the end, I'm going to combine one video and just make that one, but this is going to be in several sections, okay? So this is a section 1, which is the basic overview about Kubernetes, okay? So let's get started. A little bit prerequisite, I expect you guys to know a little bit about Docker containers. If you do not know about Docker, I do have a crash course on Docker. So please, first of all, watch that because that is very important thing you should be knowing, right? And just a general about software engineering and networking, just the general terms like TCP, UDP and stuff like that, right? Just basics. So let's get started. So first of all, hopefully everyone has been using Docker. I myself have been using Docker, right? We all are using Docker, right? So we know the key benefits are to accelerate the developers onboarding, because you can any developer can quickly get started with Docker, right? Eliminates app conflict, so it does that. Environment consistency, so we don't have to worry about like Linux or Mac or Windows. It's consistent throughout all the environments and platforms. So so that's one of the reason. And another thing is shift software faster. We know all of this, right? All of this is great, but there's a but here. But what is that but? Key concepts, Kubernetes benefits. Why you should learn Kubernetes now? Let me just give you some of the benefits here. Orchestration containers, so you can orchestrate containers. Zero downtime deployment. That means, let's say you want to deploy something on the cloud, right? So first of all, you would push the new code there, bring the old code down. You would put it down, and then you would spin up. You would run the other code, right? So in this way, there was a delay, right? There's a lag. But with Kubernetes, there is a zero deployment downtime, because as you would see in the other videos, in the future videos, it has rolling back, and lot other like deployment stuff you can do with Kubernetes. Self-healing, so the pods, or I would teach you about all of that. But if a container is destroyed or something goes wrong with the app, automatically he creates a new pod, or like a new container. I mean, kind of like that. And you can scale containers with load balancing. You can create replicas, how many ever you want. So all of that, right? We'll learn more about that in details. Now, why developers should learn this, right? What's the benefit for the developer, right? So here are the key things that a developer might consider. So basically to emulate production locally, so you can emulate production ready environment. You can have several workers and all of that in Kubernetes. So you can do that. Move from basically Docker to Kubernetes. A lot of companies are opting for Kubernetes. So that's the reason you also want to learn that, right? Creating an end-to-end testing environment, for that as well, you can use Kubernetes. Ensure application scales properly. Ensure secrets config are working properly. All the environment variables and stuff like that. Performance testing scenario, if you want to see if it can scale to that many users or whatever. You want to do some load testing. So you can run the Kubernetes, and you can, on locally, you can have a production-ready environment, and you can do all of that. Workload scenarios, CI/CD, and more. Then learn how to leverage deployment options. As I said, rolling back. There are a few more I have in the slide, so which I would cover that. And help DevOps to create a resource and solve the problems, right? So that's that. Looking at the next slide. Oops, let me come here. Actually, when I increase the camera size a little bit, so I can explain you guys as well. So back to the slides. Okay, so just a little bit about Kubernetes. What is this Kubernetes? A little bit. So Kubernetes is containers and cluster management. It was an open source project. This was used by Google for about 15 years, and then they donated to Cloud Native Computing Foundation, right, as an open source. So now basically all the major cloud platform provides Kubernetes. Now it's an open source thing. Provides a declarative way to define cluster state. That means We would learn about all of that, so don't worry about that. You can define the state of the cluster, nodes, pod. So we'll learn about all those technical terms. So let's just have an overview, a big level picture. Kubernetes is the conductor of container orchestration. Now I know you might not understand by this, but I have a very nice image which would explain you that. So of course these are the key features of Kubernetes. We have already seen that. This image is brilliant, it basically explains you all the things about Kubernetes. So as you can see here, we have a orchestra. This guy right here in the white suit, and here you can see these are all the people who are playing the instruments or the violin. Think of those people as a container. The conductor basically knows about the music. He knows each and every person. He knows what's going on. He knows what, I mean, he knows everything, right? If some person, let's say they get sick, right? Then the conductor knows, like, we have to replace that person with some another person, right? So does that all the orchestration. So very nice example. Think of a Kubernetes as this guy in the white suit, and all the person who are playing are basically the containers, right? So this guy basically manages all of these people, right? So that's a high level overview of Kubernetes, right? Section 2, that is the big picture about Kubernetes. So Kubernetes basically, as you can see, we have a master and a nodes. So as I said, think of this as a boss who is managing their employees, right? You have one master who's telling, hey, do this, you do this, you do this, you do that, right? It's like a orchestration, right? What are these nodes? We would, of course, see in the next slides. We have things in much detail there. So for now, a master and a nodes. Okay, so far so good, perfect. Now each node has a pod. Now, of course, now you will ask me a question, Saumil, what is pod and what is node? Hang on, I'm going to explain you. So what master will do is basically start a pod on each node. It's just a way to host a container. So what I'm saying is basically pod is a way to host the containers. You know how in Docker containers you host it? It's a way to you host the containers right inside the pod. The next slide would make all of your things very clear about pod, right? So amazing slide, pod, right? Pods and containers. So you can see a pod is nothing but, and inside that we have a container. Think of this as a Flask container or Docker, or Redis or some kind of a database like Mongo, right? So basically think of this as a gift wrapper, right? Whenever we go to buy some things, right? So when you wanna, let's say you get some stuff, right? So you would put that stuff into the box, right? So that box is nothing but a pod. Inside that box is like stuff here. It's just a container, right? So that's a very basic example I can give. Again, amazing photograph which explains you about Kubernetes, as I'm about to explain you. So, you know, in spaceship, right, whenever inside the spacesuit we have a person, right? So whenever he wants to talk to the outer world or the outer, to the earth, or he want to transmit some kind of a message, he would basically do that through his spacesuit, right? He would have some kind of a communication. He'll say, hey, blah, 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 blah. And the spacesuit was basically going to transmit that message. So the suit is nothing but a pod, and inside the suit is a person. That's a container, a living being, right? That's a very simple thing I can say right now about pods and containers. So these are the building blocks of Kubernetes, just a high level block level diagram. So we have a pod, right? Again, we have pod. Pod is nothing but a gift wrapper. Think of that as a spacesuit example, right? Inside that we have a container. Each pod has container. Then we have below that is services, which has like load balancing. You can specify different rollback strategies and stuff like that. So basically services we have. Then you on the left hand side you have deployments and replica set, which we would cover which we would see all of these in detail. Deployment is what kind of deployment you want to have, how many replicas do you want to have, and much more you can say. So all of that. Let's see the next example. This one right here, as you can see, it shows you pods and nodes. So remember, now, as I said, pod have containers, right? And a node can have several pods, right? Okay, so let's back up. Let's back up a bit. So pod has a container, right? Think of this as a spacesuit. Remember the spacesuit example. Now each node, you remember we said basically master nothing but it controls like the nodes. So each node has several pods, can have several pods. So 1 pod, 2 pod, and each pod has containers. So containers are Redis, your MongoDB, SQL Server. These are the containers running in the pod. Pods are running inside the node. Hopefully that should make sense. Okay, so that's that. So communicating with all of these, so if you wanna interact with all of these stuff, you would use the command kubectl. We would learn how to install all of that, this and all of that. So don't worry about that. So a high level picture, as I said, you have a master, you have a node. Node has several pods. As I said, you have these pods, and so the only way to use all of these elements is with a command called kubectl, or you will see like what do you call this? We will learn about all the commands, so don't worry. Just let's have a high level overview about what Kubernetes does exactly, right? So that's that. So section 3 is the installation. So you want to install Kubernetes now, right? Everyone wants to install Kubernetes, right? So first of all, let's run Kubernetes locally. So you can run this via Minikube or Docker Desktop. So I already have a Docker Desktop here, actually. So if you see here, I'm going to show you the installation, how to do that. But there are two ways using Minikube and Docker Desktop. In this video, we'll be using Docker Desktop, right? So the way you would do that is basically you would open Docker Desktop, and if you see enable Kubernetes and deploy Docker stacks to Kubernetes by default, you want to click that option, right? Let me see if I can show you that actually. So you click here right on the Docker container on this little ship icon or whatever you want to call. It might take a few seconds. Once you are here, you want to grab to the settings right there. Go to the Kubernetes, make sure you do these two options, and then apply and restart. Once you do that, guys, you're all set with Kubernetes, right? That's all, you're done. Kubernetes is installed. Now that's done, right? Now let us learn about very basic commands about Kubernetes. So let's learn that. Let me just have a sip. Section 4, commands in Kubernetes, right? So we have installed Kubernetes now. So Amil, now I want to do something. I want to create something. I want to do something. So okay, we'll do stuff. Okay, getting started with kubectl. Okay, so the first thing, I'm gonna open command prompt here. Hopefully, oops, not that one. I want to open on this screen actually. So oops. Okay. It seems like it's yeah. There you go. So I'm trying to actually collapse this so we can do both the things at a time. A little bit more. Okay. That's fine. So first thing, kubectl version, which will tell you the version of Kubernetes. So let's get your hands a little dirty. So kubectl, and then you want to say version. Oops, I think I made a mistake. So kubectl version. This will tell you whether you have installed Kubernetes, everything is okay. If you get this message, hooray, you're done with step 1, right? So you have Kubernetes, that's done. Okay, so you can get first of all, when you say the command kubectl and you say get alls, so basically this is gonna get you all whatever you want to call, like deployments or containers or whatever you want to call, like pods. It's gonna show you. Right now I do not have anything, so it's showing that. Another commands, I mean, these are all things we would learn as we create a hello world example. So let's progress on the course. Okay, so we are done with that. Now one more thing we want to do is basically we want to install a Kubernetes dashboard, right? We want to do that. Swamil, I want some kind of a dashboard. All right, so what we do is basically you gotta basically do some steps in order to do that. So first of all, you gotta copy this command kubectl apply -f and then the link of the YAML file. So what this does is basically, let me actually go here. I think I did this slide, right? Okay, so now I want to show a dashboard for that. So copy that, come here, paste it. Okay, so I'm done with that. So it gave me some messages, so it's okay. Now what I want to do is basically come here. So now the step 1 is basically, we did that, right? We got all of these messages. Now step 2 is basically getting the token. So what we gotta do is basically copy this command, kubectl describe secrets -n kube system. I'm gonna clean this. So if you see, it's gonna dump few tokens here. We would go on the very top and copy the first token right there, copied. Excuse me. Now what you want to do is you want to start a proxy. Which slide is this? 26. Oh, sorry, my bad. So we basically grab the token, right? So I copied the token. Now what you want to do is basically you want to run a kubectl proxy. So I'm going to open a new command prompt here, and we would say kubectl proxy. Hit that, should start the proxy. Now what you want to do is basically you want to go to the local host to this IP address, actually this URL. You can copy this from my PowerPoints, so do not worry about that. So open Chrome. And remember, now here you need to pass that auth token you got, right? So auth token, remember we got this token here, we copied this, right? So we copy this, copy in the auth section, paste that, sign in. Okay, congratulations, you have a dashboard now. Basically you can see this is a Kubernetes dashboard. Wanna close that. Make sure you do not close the proxy. If you close that, it's gonna shut down. So this is the dashboard. Oh, I think I closed it, but yeah, you got the idea, right? This is the dashboard which would show you all the stuff like on the UI, right? So let's close that. No, we don't need that. Let's learn our very basic stuff about Kubernetes. So we saw the dashboard. So, oh yeah, we got that. So now I wanna cover a little bit about this. Let me actually, oops, gotta swap the display again. Swap the display. Okay, perfect. Oh, quickly, let's go there. So we did the dashboard. So yeah, now let's talk about the role of pods, right? So if a pod gets sick, Kubernetes will monitor them and automatically spin up a new pod. As I said, pods has containers, right? So if anyone gets sick, like Kubernetes is constantly monitoring it, right? And it's going to spin up a new one, right? That all happens with the replicas and stuff, which we will see in the upcoming stuff. So don't worry about that. You cannot do something like these. Like if you have a node and you cannot have a pod which is basically in both the nodes. That's not allowed, okay? You can have a node, inside a node you can have several pods, but you can't do something like this, okay? Yeah, these are the basic commands I would like you to understand. kubectl get pods basically shows you the list of pods. Hopefully I can show you that. So yeah, I can just say kubectl, okay, kubectl get pods. I don't have any pods right now. Oh, sorry, spelling mistake. I don't have any pods, so it's gonna say, okay, no, you don't have that. Then you can say get all. This is basically gonna get all the list of all the resources. You can run an image by saying kubectl run and the name of the image that you want to run. So it's very easy. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So let's run our first image. So let's collapse that. Okay, so we are here. Let's do this way. Maybe might be helpful. Okay, so what I'm going to do is basically I want to run an image, right? I want to run an Nginx image. I just want to show you the commands, how everything works together. So as you can see, kubectl, then run, and then we say the name of the container that you want to give. So kubectl run my Nginx, right? Then what? Then basically, oops, sorry for that. And then you would say image equal to Nginx. So let's do that. Then you have to say the image, but I won't recommend this way. For learning, it's fine because we would do the YAML file approach. That's the that's the way you want to do it. So is equal to Nginx. So if I just do this, you can see pod created, right? Now if you want to see all the pods, you can say kubectl, right? And you can say let's do get pods. So you can see the pod is running right now, right? It started from 10 seconds. That's that. So if you want to get all the resources, you can say kubectl get all. You can see we have this pod Nginx which is running here, and this is the default service of Kubernetes. That's fine. So that's that. Now you should ask me, Saumil, how do I delete this? I started this container or whatever pod, right? Saumil, how do I delete this pod or image or whatever you want to call? So the way you would do that is basically very easy. So kubectl delete, and then you gotta say the name of the image. I guess the delete pod was there for the command. I guess pod. Okay, so you would say delete pods and then you would say the name. So pod my nginx is deleted, so it's being deleted right now. Excuse me, clear the screen. So let's do kubectl get all. We shouldn't see nginx, and that's perfect. Let's do kubectl get pods. No resource, so that works fine, right? So this was a small brush up on the what do you call that, the commands, right? Hopefully you are comfortable with just a very basic command, how to delete and how to see all the resources and stuff like that. Okay, let's move next slide, 38. So we just did that, right? We ran the nginx container. This is just on the slide I'm showing you, right? Let's see all the pods. You can, of course, we did that. We said get all, or you can say get pods. You would write the name. You want to delete a pod, you can say kubectl delete the pod and then the name of the image. That would delete the pod. Now Kubernetes with YAML, right? So what we basically made an nginx file, right? I mean, we basically downloaded an nginx file. How can we do that with a YAML file approach? So very easy. I just created a YAML file here. So we said API version is equal to v1 kind as pod, because we are making a pod, remember. So what is pod? You will ask me. I'll show you what pod is. So then basically we're saying some metadata. If you don't supply this, it's fine. It's just a name. Specs and then container. You say a name. You want to give any aliases. Then the image that you want to download and just exposing port 80, right? So if you see what we are creating here is, let me, if I go to the slides quickly. Yeah, always it opens on the other screen. I always have to swap it. So it's fine. So let's review it. What I'm trying to say, what we are making actually here is basically this pod. Pod has the container called as nginx, okay? So we are building that. So as you can see, this pod, we said like, hey, this is this pod. Let me see if I can bring this here. Okay, so we are basically making this pod a metadata. We are just giving some metadata. So let me show you a little bit more. Running all of that, kubectl. So that's why I said, like, let's go like slowly understanding the very basic building blocks, and then we can go from that. So basically we're creating this a simple pod. So kind as pod metadata, we're just giving it a name, and they're saying, hey, the image is going to be nginx, okay? So with that being said, now we want to run this, right? So to run the command, there are a couple of ways. You can say kubectl create -f, and you can provide the file name, which would run. But what I wouldn't recommend is I'd not use this, because why, if you run this command again, if the pod already exists, it's going to throw an error. Instead, you would use a command kubectl apply -f and the name of the file. I'll show you what I mean by that, okay? Don't worry about all of these things. So let me let me run that. So dir, I have that my nginx.yaml file here. So what you want to do is kubectl apply, okay, and apply, and then I guess it was -f, right? Yeah, apply -f, that means the file name, and then my nginx.yaml. Enter that, and pod nginx deployment created. So we have a deployment. What we can do is now kubectl get pods. So you can see we have a pod there. You can also get all the resources. Kubectl get all basically shows you that you have a pod. To bring this down, of course, you can delete that. You can use kubectl delete and then the name of the image. But instead of doing that, I would recommend using this approach. So I would say kubectl, okay. So instead of you would say the word delete, but then you would say -f and the name of the file. So it knows exactly what to delete. So now it's deleting that pod. Now remember, guys, what is a pod? Pod is nothing but a gift wrapper which has the container, right? We just saw, we just revising your concept. So basically, let me show you the pod. Pod is nothing but a container, like a spacesuit, right? So hopefully that makes sense, okay? So the dashboard is done. This done. Roll of pods, that's done. Basic commands, we also saw all of that. Okay, so these are the basic commands, okay? So now how do we go inside a running container? So I want to cover a little bit about that. So let's first start up the pod. So kubectl, okay, kubectl, and guess what you want to do? Apply -f my nginx.pod. So we have this pod now, right? So I'll show you this. Kubectl get pods, you would get the pod. Now you want to go inside that pod, right? So the command to do that is basically you gotta say kubectl exec. So as you can see, kubectl exec, and you would say the name of the image. Name of the image, and then you want to say it, that means for terminal mode, and you want to have a shell command. So now you are inside the running pod. So cd I don't know, share what are they? So you can go inside any of this folder. Nginx is already running, right? So I don't know if the share is there. No, whatever. So yeah, that's basically you are inside the running container. To exit out, you can just say exit. Okay, exit. So that's that. Okay, so you can go inside the running pod, right? Remember, what is a pod? Pod is just nothing but a spacesuit or a gift wrapper around the container. Stuff like that. I want to cover a little bit about probe, what a probe is. Okay, give me one sec. Okay, probes, right? So, excuse me. Kubernetes relies on probe to determine the health of the container. Now, you know why in APIs, when you make an API, you want to have some kind of a health check, right? Whether the API is running. You hit an API, it gives a 200, that means API is running fine, the health is okay. If it gives 400, 404, or something 500, that means it's broken, something is bad. You want to see the health of of Kubernetes, right? So probes will allow you to check the health of these pods, or so what you can do is basically let me just read the definition. Kubernetes relies on probe to determine the health of the containers. Probe is basically a diagnostic perform periodic. Sorry for the spelling mistake. Should be periodically. My bad. By the kubelet on the container. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Again, periodically by the kubelet, and then let's do a slideshow. Current slide, custom slide. Yeah, from the current slide. There you go. Again, gotta swap the displays. There you go. Okay, so that is nothing but probes, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Types of probes. As I said, there are two types of probe. As I said, first of all is the liveness of probe and the readiness probe, right? Now, what is liveness probe? Liveness probes can be used to determine if a pod is healthy and running as expected. Pod is running container, so you can check if the pods are running healthy. Okay. Readiness probe can be used to determine if the pod should if the pod should receive a request. So basically, if you want to make some request to your API which is running inside a pod or inside a container, if you want to do that kind of check, you can do that with readiness. I'm just showing you a very simple liveness probe here. So you have a YAML file here. You can see you're saying like liveness, HTTP get port 80, initial delay seconds is 15, timeout is 2, period seconds like 5, failure threshold 1. So basically keep doing this after every like n number of seconds. So basically it checks if the pod is healthy, right? Section 5, replicas and deployment concepts. Shall I cover this a little bit? Yeah, let me cover section 5 a little bit. So replicas and deployment concepts. As you know, now if you are following with me, you know that what is a pod? Pod is nothing but a wrapper which has containers, right? A node can have several pods, and each pod has a container. Now, a replica set is a declarative way to manage pods. Sorry for the spelling mistake again. I've done a lot of typos there, but it's fine. So a replica set is a declarative way to manage pods. Okay, so it's a way to manage pods. And now, what is deployment? A deployment is a declarative way to manage pods using the replica set. Okay, so I know it's a little tricky. Let's like understand a little bit. Okay, so here you can see on the right hand side there's an image which shows a pod, right, and you have a container inside that pod. So pod represent the most basic resource in Kubernetes, right? As I said, it's one of the most basic resource in Kubernetes. Excuse me, sorry, I've been talking from a long time. So as I said, it's one of the most basic resource. Can be created and destroyed, but can never be recreated. Okay, so we can create and destroy pods, but we cannot recreate the pods, right? So what happens if the pod is destroyed? Well, it's gone, right? So deployment and replica sets ensure that the pods stay running and can be used to scale the pods. So in short, what it does is deployments and replicas ensure that if a pod is destroyed, which has a container, if it's destroyed for some reason, it would spin up a new one, right? That's the job of this guy. Replica set. As I said, replica set helps to, as I just told you. So let's read a little bit definition. So you can see an image here of a pod with a container, right? And around that I have a red border with a replica set. So replica set acts as a pod controller. As I said, it controls, right? So it basically makes sure self-healing mechanism. So if the pod is unhealthy, it would spin up a new one, right? Ensures the requested number of pods are available always. So if you say there should be like 4 pods, which has like 4 containers here, so you make sure that these many pods are always there. Provides fault tolerance also. Can be used to scale the pods. You can use to scale the pods as well. Relies on pod templates. Also relies on pod templates. You got to write some stuff which we will see. Deployment. So as I said, deployment lies above the replica layer. So let's read. Deployment manages pods, right? So as you can see, the deployment manages pods. Okay. Pods are managed using replica sets, and pods are managed by replica set. Remember, okay, let's go back a little bit again. So replica set acts as a pod controller, okay, and basically deployment is basically so basically, as you can see, pods are managed by replica sets. A deployment manages the pod, scales replica sets. So its job is to scale the replica sets. Okay, how many replicas do you need? Okay, so and each replica has a pods, right? So you see what I'm saying, right? Scales replica set, which scales the pod, right? Hopefully self-explanatory, right? Supports zero downtime updates by creating and destroying replica sets. So creating and destroying replica sets is done in nearly zero downtime. Now, how that is done, I'll show you in some next slides. There are rollback, rolling stuff like that. So I'm going to show you that. Okay, provides a rollback functionality. That's what I've been talking about. Creates a unique label that is assigned to replica set and generated pods. We'll learn when we do this YAML file. We'll write the code for that. So we'll learn that. As I said, the deployment. So one of the strength of Kubernetes is zero downtime deployments. So this is where I was talking about that rolling back and all. Remember, so update an application pod without impacting the end user. That means, let's say you have an API version, right? Now you want to deploy a new version. So what you would do ideally is in old days, you would take that down and then you would start the new one, right? So there was a downtime, right? Kubernetes can do that with some, like zero downtime. And how it does that, there are various options available. First is you can see rolling updates. That means I would talk about that. Don't worry about that. Then blue-green deployments, canary deployments, and rollback. These are the kind of deployments options available in Kubernetes. Okay. If you want to read more, I would cover only the rolling updates. And for other things, you can Google it up, right? So let's look at the rolling deployments. Okay, so here you can see, can I take a pen? Oh, no, I cannot. I was trying to write something. Pen, let's see if it works. Okay, so this is the first stage. Oops. Oh, okay. So this is the first stage, right? We have this right now. Let's say you made some code changes and you wanna roll out that. So what it will do is basically you would have this old pods and then you would have a new pods. So now if you think that everything went okay, what you can do is you can delete one of the old pods and then you would have 1, 2 and this, and then you would create one more new pod for API v2. That way then you would destroy this one. So all of these strategies, so you see how you don't have zero downtime, because think about it. If you deployed this one right here, if you deployed something new here, and if something went wrong, right, so you can quickly switch back to here. Like Kubernetes, since you have all the pods running, right, it's like bam, bam, bam. It's very fast. You also have, I guess it was blue. I was canary deployment. So what in that, if I'm not wrong, is basically in that strategy, what you do is basically when you deploy your stuff, so particular amount of traffic, let's say 100 people are visiting website. So out of that 100 people, only 10 people would be routed to your new code. Now, if that code is okay, then you would migrate all the rest 80 to that new pod. You see how this is amazing, right? All of this is done by Kubernetes. We don't have to worry about all of this thing, right? So Kubernetes take care of about all of these. That's that. And let me unselect the pen, laser pointer, highlight. I've never used like PPT much, so I don't know much, so whatever. So that's that. Okay, section 5, creating deployments. This is gonna be a little tricky. Section 6, creating deployments. So as I said, you know that deployments is nothing but, you can specify what kind of deployment strategies you want. For example, like rollback, rolling update, canary deployment, blue, green deployments, and much more might be there. Here I'm just showing you for the example for the deployment. So you create a YAML file and then you have to say the kind as deployment. Remember how when we was creating pods, we said kind as pods. Let me refresh your memory. I know you might have forgotten this, but it's very, very important we nail the basics here. So I guess he was now a little bit up. Section 2 should be here now. Yeah, you see, when we create a pod, we said a kind as pod. Remember this, see, kind as pod. Now, when we basically create a deployment, we say kind as deployment. Oops, discard. I guess I went out. So let me display swap settings. I went too far away, I guess. So let me see that. So we saw all of this stuff, which is good. Replicas and deployment. Okay, so I guess we did this. I explained you replica. Sorry about that. So I explained you all. Let me make sure my recording is running. Otherwise, it will be like, okay, we are rolling up. So that's that. Pause this. Okay. So yeah, we were here. So creating deployments, right? So whenever you want to create a deployment, you would specify the type as deployment, right? Metadata is basically just you give a name or labels or something. Replicas as 3, you're saying that, hey, I need like 3 replicas, right? So that's that. Then basically here you're just specifying the container like port, you're exposing image, name of the container. Again, this is just a metadata here. So that's that. So this is a very simple deployment, right? How you would write a deployment file. Again, when you want to run this, you can just say kubectl create and then, but I would just use the apply, just stick to apply method. Kubectl apply -f and the file name. Similarly, you can get all the deployments, you can do all of that. Services, I'm just going to cover a little bit about services. It's a little tricky. Let's cover a little bit about services. Services, right? So now we are at this section of Kubernetes. We saw the pods, we saw the we know the containers, we saw the pods, we saw the deployment, we saw the replica set. Now we are at services. Since pod live or die, can you rely on their IP address? I mean, you know that the pods die and they're created, they are destroyed. So you cannot rely on their IP address because when they die or when they are created, but the IP address would change, right? It would change. So that's the answer. Like, no, that's why we need a service IP. So what service does is basically, the job of service is basically to make sure that the IP, whatever happens to the IP, you want to make sure that you have a constant IP or a domain. That's the job of service in layman language. Okay. So as you can see, service abstract pod IP addresses from the consumer. So it does all the load balances between the pods as well. So it also does load balancing between the pods. I'll show you on the next slide what it means. Relies on labels to associate a service with a pod. Node kube proxy creates a virtual IP. Blah. Okay, that's not important. Okay, so here you can see, like, we have an external caller. He would call the service with a particular IP address. It would be routed to a pod 1. Second person came, pod 2. Third person, pod 3. So it does the load balancing also. You can do that. There are types of services you have. So first is the cluster IP, which is basically exposes the service on a cluster internal IP. Then we have a node port, basically exposing the port. Load balancers, as I said, as a name, load balancer, right? An external name maps a service to a DNS name, like a domain name if you want to map that. Cluster IP, as I can, so basically, as you can see, service IP is exposed internally within the clusters. Only pods within the clusters can talk to a service, allows pods to talk to other pods. So basically, you would have a IP address, and then everyone would be, you can access the, it's basically accessing through the IP address. Similarly, you can do that through ports as well if you want to have, if you want to keep changing ports, so you can, specify this as a node port service. Similarly, load balancer, external services. That's that. Now, so since we have learned a lot of, we have learned about all of these, we have a general idea about Kubernetes. I think in general we have an idea. So what I want to do is basically in the next video, since we know a little bit about Kubernetes now, I actually wanna, so you can see, I had a sample deployment here. So, you would just write this YAML file and then it would do all the job for you. Let's do one thing. Let's create a Flask application, a very simple Hello World app, and then let's try to deploy that using Kubernetes. Let's use replicas, let's use pods, services. Let's use all the concept we have learned so far and apply it. That would, that would hammer the, like whatever we understood, we will make sure that, oh, okay, that's what it means. Okay, this means that, this means that. One disclaimer I want to give you guys, most of the slides and the images you see, I have taken that from a course that I learned all of this from. It was from a plural site by Dan Wallin. How do you want to say? But he did a good job in explaining all of these concepts. I've learned everything from this guy, and I'm just basically acting as a message transmitter. I'm just teaching you guys for free because those courses are like paid one, right? So I'm just teaching you all for free, right? That's my aim here. Hopefully, this was a very quick, you want to say like a getting started series on Kubernetes. Anyone who needs the slides can kindly, let me see for slides. I'll upload on Google Drive, and then that way you can download these slides. So hopefully this makes sense, right? Getting started with Kubernetes installation, basic command, get pods, get all, then the apply command, then the delete command, very basic, right? So hopefully this should make sense. And in the next video, let's learn about, like Flask and actually deploying stuff on, deploy stuff with Kubernetes. Let's do that, okay? So yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. Hope this video was useful, and if you did find it a little bit useful, I would please expect you to give a small like on this video and share it if possible. Once again, thank you for love. Thank you for all the support you have been giving me. As usual, guys, keep smiling, keep coding, stay safe, and keep learning as well. If you have any more questions, list your questions in the comments. You can also write me an email. Let me create a next video on deployment of a Flask app using Kubernetes. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.